If you love the Eagles as much as we do, get ready because there's already buzz brewing in the fantasy football world, surrounding none other than Saquon Barkley last season. He was the engine that drove the Philadelphia Eagles all the way to the Super Bowl, and alongside that incredible on-field success, he also became one of the most beloved players in fantasy football. But now, there's a bold and perhaps controversial prediction suggesting that Barkley might not hit the same heights in the upcoming season. In 2024, Barkley not only played a key role in leading Philadelphia to the championship game, he also delivered elite fantasy production week in and week out. By the end of the season, he had racked up an astonishing 355.3 fantasy points in full-point PPR leagues. That total made him the second highest scoring running back in fantasy football, trailing only behind Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. But here's a fascinating detail. Barkley reached that lofty total in just 16 games, averaging 22 points of fantasy points per game compared to Gibbs' 21.3 average, achieved over 17 games. In short, Barkley outperformed Gibbs on a per-game basis, showcasing his consistency, explosiveness, and the central role he played in the Eagles' offense. Naturally, fans, analysts, and fantasy managers are thinking, can Barkley do it again? Is another season like that even possible? Expectations are sky high. But as is so often the case in both sports and fantasy football, when you bind yourself to a peak performance, especially one as remarkable as Barkley's, from 2024, sooner or later, reality starts to weigh in. And now, Sports Illustrated's Michael Fabiano has issued a cautionary forecast that's turning heads. He labels Barkley as a potential fantasy football disappointment. Saquon Barkley will be a huge fantasy football disappointment, Fabiano stated, adding that he's written multiple articles outlining why Barkley could face regression after his monumental 2024 campaign. According to Fabiano, there are several red flags to consider. One is Barkley's heavy workload last season. Clearly, his usage was intense, week after week. Naturally, that raises questions about how sustainable such heavy lifting can be over the long haul. In the statistical phenomenon known as regression to the mean, and the concern becomes even more pronounced. Then there's the matter of subtle curses, those little intangible risks, things like injuries, shifts in offensive schematics, or even voodoo-like luck running out that could derail what seems like a promising season on paper. Fabiano's warning doesn't entirely dismiss Barkley's talent or importance to the Eagles. It simply frames him as a player whose fantasy valuation might come with more risk than usual. A star of his caliber, after all, always carries loftier expectations, and when you're coming off a historic season, your margin for error narrows dramatically. Fabiano cautions fantasy managers to be prepared for Barkley to fall out of the top 10 running backs next season, a bold stance, given just how high he soared the year before. We're still several months away from kickoff, so there's plenty of time for narratives to shift, for team camps to tell a different story, or for Barkley himself to prove that all doubts were unfounded. But as the hype builds and the betting boards fill up, this early skepticism is a reminder that fantasy football isn't just about counting points. It's also about managing expectations, balancing upside against downside, and recognizing when last year's success might simply be that, last year's. So while almost nobody would bet against Barkley replicating his 2024 form, Fabiano's cautionary take is worth thinking about. Is the running back headed for another dominant fantasy season, or is this the stage right before a dip, where the demands of workload, age, team dynamics, and statistical odds converge? That's the storyline worth following as we head closer to Week 1, and as always, only time will tell if Barkley lives up to the promise he showed last year. Let the camp openings, preseason matchups, and early performance indicators be our guide. But for now, we're staring down one of the most intriguing fantasy questions heading into the new season. And if there's one thing that history has taught us in the fantasy football universe, it's that no matter how elite a player looks on paper, the game itself never unfolds according to the script. Saquon Barkley enters the new season not just as a star running back, but as a symbol of that exact unpredictability. The very factors that made him a league winner for fantasy managers last year are now being scrutinized through a different lens. Volume. Sure, he had plenty of it, but volume also comes with wear and tear. Explosive plays. Absolutely, but those kinds of moments are harder to sustain, especially when defenses start to key in and game plan more aggressively. And then there's the cold, hard truth that fantasy football is often about timing and luck just as much as talent and stats. Coaches might tweak his usage. Offensive coordinators might spread the workload to preserve him for a playoff push, or the Eagles might find themselves in game scripts where Barkley's involvement becomes less of a focus. It doesn't take a dramatic injury or a total collapse to make a player underperform expectations. Sometimes it's just a few touches fewer per game, or a teammate emerging as a surprise red zone threat that shifts the entire balance. And that's where fantasy disappointment sneaks in, not because the player suddenly forgot how to play, but because the ecosystem around him evolved. Still, this is Saquon Barkley we're talking about. The same player who shrugged off doubters year after year, the same athlete who, when healthy and motivated, can take over a game with one cut, one burst, one broken tackle that leaves defenders gasping. The idea that he's suddenly going to fall off a cliff because of regression models or fantasy curses, that's a hard sell for plenty of fans and analysts alike. After all, Barkley's floor remains higher than most running backs' ceilings. He's not just good, he's potentially generational when everything clicks. But this is also the season where narratives start to tighten. Every carry will be dissected, every injury report will raise alarms. Fantasy managers will weigh his draft stock with surgical precision. Is he a first-round lock again? Or does the specter of regression slide him into the second round, where the risk-reward calculus feels more reasonable? That's where the drama builds, not just in whether Barkley can repeat his fantasy heroics, but in how the community responds to the fear that he might not. There's also the question of how the Eagles' offensive scheme evolves, with new pieces coming in and possibly some changes in philosophy. Barkley's usage could be tweaked to align with broader team goals. Maybe they pass more. Maybe a committee approach gets sprinkled in during stretches, or maybe Barkley becomes even more of a focal point, turning all the pessimism into fuel. That's what makes fantasy predictions so fragile. They hinge on assumptions that can crumble as soon as real football begins. And what about Barkley himself? You can bet he's hearing the noise. Athletes at his level don't need bulletin board material, but it never hurts to have an extra chip on the shoulder. After being crowned as fantasy royalty last season, the idea that he's now being written off by some experts could be exactly what sparks another dominant run. If anything, Barkley's track record suggests he thrives under pressure. The brighter the spotlight, the better he performs. So as fantasy drafts start to take shape and managers begin plotting out their ideal rosters, Barkley stands as the ultimate swing pick. He could anchor a championship squad once again, or he could be the player everyone points to in Week 10, wondering how they missed the signs. The debate is just heating up. And that's the beauty of fantasy sports. It's not just about numbers, it's about stories, belief, and sometimes taking a leap of faith. Whether you're backing the analytics or trusting your gut, one thing's for sure: Saquon Barkley will be one of the most talked about names heading into the new season. And love him or doubt him, you won't be able to ignore him. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy, share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Philadelphia was abuzz this weekend as veteran quarterback Kirk Cousins was spotted arriving in the city, greeted by an enthusiastic crowd of Eagles fans. While nothing has been officially confirmed, the buzz surrounding his arrival has ignited a wave of speculation about a potential blockbuster move that could send the former Vikings quarterback to the city of brotherly love. According to local sources, Cousins was seen exiting a black SUV near Lincoln Financial Field, where a group of fans, many clad in midnight green, had gathered in apparent celebration. Chants of "Go Birds" and "Welcome, Kirk" echoed through the streets, sparking rumors of an imminent signing or trade that could shake up the NFC East. The Eagles have remained tight-lipped on the matter, with no official statements released from the front office. Still, the mere presence of Cousins in Philadelphia has sent sports talk radio and social media into a frenzy. Could this be a strategic move to push Jalen Hurts, a mentorship opportunity, or perhaps a long-term insurance policy? Cousins, who is coming off a season-ending Achilles injury, but has consistently been one of the most reliable arms in the league, would bring experience and leadership to a franchise hungry for another Super Bowl run. Despite the injury, his name has surfaced in several off-season rumor mills, linking him to teams looking for a proven veteran presence. Some insiders suggest the Eagles could be exploring a short-term deal to bolster their quarterback room, while others believe this could be a smokescreen, part of a larger negotiation tactic involving future draft picks or cap space considerations. Whatever the case, Cousins' arrival has certainly lit a spark. As of now, all we know for certain is that Kirk Cousins is in town and Philadelphia is watching closely. Whether this is the beginning of a bold new chapter for the Eagles or just another off-season mirage remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, the city is buzzing with possibility. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.